Have you ever wondered why the things that hurt you most are often the very things you reach for again and again? It is a strange contradiction of the human mind. You crave the poison that burns you, the silence that empties you, the touch that leaves you bleeding. Addiction does not always look like a needle pressed into a vein or a bottle shattered against the floor. Sometimes it hides in the soft glow of a phone at midnight, in the desperate hunger for someone's approval, in the patterns you swear you'll escape but always return to. It is a cage so subtle you almost convince yourself you are free, until you notice that every path leads you back to the same locked door. Picture yourself standing in a room made of glass. From the outside, it appears unbroken, clear, limitless. You press your hand against the wall and feel nothing but smoothness, transparency, an illusion of space. Yet, when you try to step forward, you collide with an invisible barrier. That is the addicted mind, a prison of hidden cravings that shapes your every move while pretending not to exist. You may laugh, you may work, you may post smiling photographs, but behind it all, something pulls your strings, whispering, "Just one more, just one more." Think of the child who learns that comfort comes not from being held, but from a sweet treat offered to quiet the tears, or the teenager who discovers that validation from others feels warmer than the silence at home. These small moments, repeated often enough, carve grooves into the mind, training the nervous system to chase relief in shadows instead of safety in presence. Neuroscience tells us that the brain learns quickly where to find its chemical rewards. Dopamine surges, not when you receive the thing you crave, but when you anticipate it, the scrolling thumb, the unopened message, the glass being poured. You are not addicted to the thing itself, but to the promise it holds, the hope of filling a void that remains stubbornly empty. And so, the prison builds itself quietly. Each craving becomes another bar. Each repetition, another lock. You tell yourself you can stop whenever you choose, that tomorrow will be different, that this is only a phase. But tomorrow comes, and the invisible walls remain. The cage is not outside you. It is inside, wrapped around your thoughts, stitched into your memory, wired into the circuits of your brain. The tragedy is not that you crave. The tragedy is that you believe craving is all you are. Yet even in the darkest cell, there is always a window. To see it, you must first admit that the walls exist, because only by naming the prison can you begin to find the key. And to understand where these cravings come from, you must return to the place where they first began to grow in the small, fragile soil of childhood. Have you ever noticed how some hungers begin before you even understand what hunger is? Not the hunger for food, but the hunger for touch, for safety, for someone to look into your eyes and say without words, "You matter." When that hunger is left unanswered, the child learns to find substitutes. And those substitutes, once planted, grow into roots that wind their way into adulthood, becoming cravings that feel impossible to silence. Imagine a boy sitting in his bedroom while his parents argue in the kitchen. The walls shake with voices sharp as glass, and he clutches his video game controller tighter, escaping into glowing worlds where conflict is pixelated and victory can be earned with enough persistence. To anyone else, it is harmless play. But for him, it is a refuge, a place where the chaos of reality cannot touch him. Over time, his brain learns that the screen, not people, brings safety, and in that conditioning, the seed of addiction is sown. Or picture a little girl at the dinner table, her tears met not with arms that comfort, but with a cookie pressed into her hand. The sugar on her tongue becomes a substitute for the sweetness of being, soothed. Each time her sadness is silenced with treats instead of tenderness, her nervous system learns that relief comes not from connection, but from consumption. This is not indulgence, it is survival. But the cost of survival is the creation of a shadow that will follow her long into adulthood. Psychologists call this attachment theory, the idea that the consistency of love in childhood becomes the template through which you navigate the world. When safety is secure, you grow roots in trust. But when safety is inconsistent, when affection is conditional or absent, your brain latches onto anything that offers a temporary sense of control. Neuroscience shows that children deprived of reliable comfort develop heightened stress responses. Their cortisol levels spike faster, their reward pathways are more easily hijacked. The brain, desperate for relief, begins to memorize where pleasure hides, no matter how shallow or fleeting. These early adaptations do not vanish as you grow, they transform. The boy who escaped into games may become the man who loses himself in endless scrolling. The girl who found comfort in sugar may grow into the woman who numbs heartbreak with shopping or wine. What began as survival becomes a lifelong pattern. The nervous system still searching, still craving, still trying to heal a wound carved in silence. And so, the child within you whispers through your habits, asking for the love it never received. You may call it craving, you may call it addiction, but beneath the name lies the same seed of longing, buried deep in the soil of your earliest memories. And unless you unearth it, unless you dare to look back at what first taught you to reach for substitutes, that seed will keep growing, shaping the mask you wear in adulthood. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to look put together on the outside while crumbling silently within? Childhood cravings rarely disappear, they only change costumes. What once was a child's desperate attempt to feel safe transforms into an adult's polished mask of normalcy. You carry the same hunger into every room, but now it wears a smile, a well-tailored suit, a carefully curated image. To the world, you look controlled. But beneath that mask, the shadow still whispers, still dictates, still holds the keys to your cage. You finish work, exhausted, telling yourself you deserve a drink. One glass becomes two, then three, until the edges of reality blur into something softer. To your friends, you are just unwinding. They laugh with you, clink glasses, and call it celebration. But you know the truth, it is not joy you're pouring, it is escape. Each sip is a pact you make with your craving. Keep me numb tonight, and I will pay you tomorrow in shame. Or you shop. A package arrives at your door, small and harmless. Inside, the rush of something new, a fleeting spark of significance. You rip it open, breathe in the chemical scent of fresh fabric, and for a moment you believe the emptiness has been dressed in silk. But by the next morning, the hunger returns, louder, more insistent. The closet fills, the bank account drains, but the void remains untouched. Some of your cravings are quieter, almost invisible. You stare at your phone long after midnight, scrolling as if the next image will finally tell you who you are. Or you compulsively text someone you know won't answer, as though each unanswered bubble is proof of how replaceable you really feel. Addiction is rarely dramatic. It often hides in plain sight, disguised as routine, normalized as just how life is. Neuroscience calls this the mask of control, the illusion that your choices are conscious, when in truth, your brain is caught in well-worn grooves of dopamine and relief. The mask is not a lie you tell others, it is the lie you tell yourself. You wear it like an oxygen mask, believing it keeps you alive, while all the while it quietly suffocates the very breath you were meant to take. And society applauds the mask. The professional who works 18-hour days, the friend who never misses a party, the partner who looks endlessly devoted. Few notice that beneath the applause is a prisoner, clinging to the bars of invisible need. The tragedy is not that you wear the mask. The tragedy is that it fits so well, you forget you ever lived without it. And yet, beneath the surface, your mind is not free, it is hijacked. To see how deeply, you must turn from the polished cage of appearances to the inner machinery itself, where science reveals the hidden chains of craving. What if I told you that the choices you believe are your own are often nothing more than rehearsed performances directed by chemistry? Inside your skull, billions of neurons are locked in a quiet war, their signals writing the script of your desires long before you whisper them to yourself. Addiction is not merely weakness or lack of discipline. It is the story of a brain hijacked by its oldest survival systems, still trying to chase rewards that once meant life or death, but now leave you empty and enslaved. Imagine the moment before you reach for your phone, or before the glass touches your lips. Your body feels a restless pull, an unease that only one act can soothe. Neuroscience shows that dopamine, the brain's messenger of reward, does not flood you when you achieve satisfaction, but in the space just before it, in the anticipation, in the promise. Like a shadow offering water in a desert, the craving is most powerful when you are still thirsty. That is why you scroll long after you intended to stop, why the slot machine keeps you pulling the lever, why you return to a toxic lover who wounds you. You are not addicted to the reward itself, but to the pulse of hope that it might finally be enough. Psychologists call this the cue craving response reward cycle. A smell, a notification, a memory acts as the cue. The craving rises, tightening like a fist in your chest. You respond, click, sip, call, buy. And for a moment, the brain rewards you with relief, only to reset the cycle again. Operant conditioning ensures that the more often you repeat the loop, the deeper the grooves in your neural pathways become. Like water carving a canyon, the brain remembers where the flow has been strongest and rushes to repeat it. Over time, the craving ceases to be optional. It becomes automatic, a reflex hidden beneath your mask of control. Modern life amplifies this ancient circuitry. The sugar-laden foods that flood your bloodstream, the glowing casino lights designed to dazzle your senses, the endless feed of likes and swipes, all are engineered to hijack your dopamine system, exploiting what evolution built to keep you alive. You are a creature whose ancestors learned to hunt and gather, whose brains once lit up at the sight of fruit or firelight. Now that same circuitry is manipulated by corporations, technologies, even relationships that thrive on your dependence. The brain becomes a stage, and your cravings, the puppeteers, pulling strings while you convince yourself you are dancing freely. This is the silent theft of addiction. The brain, built to help you survive, has become the very machinery of your imprisonment. And once you understand the science of this hijacking, a darker truth emerges. The very comfort you chase will one day become the source of your suffering. It is here that the shadow of addiction reveals its cruelest paradox. What happens when the very thing that once saved you becomes the thing that slowly destroys you? That is the paradox of addiction. At first, the craving feels like a friend, a gentle hand that calms your trembling, a warm blanket against the cold. It eases the ache, silences the noise, fills the hollow space inside your chest. But as time passes, comfort becomes captivity. What once offered you freedom now tightens around your throat like an iron collar. You are no longer reaching for relief, you are reaching for chains. Picture a man sinking into deep water, clutching a stone as though it were a lifeboat. He believes that if he just holds it tighter, he will stay afloat. But the weight only drags him further down, lungs burning, vision dimming. That is the truth of the addicted mind. The substance, the habit, the person it feels like salvation, yet it is the stone that pulls you deeper into despair. Or imagine a woman lifting a jeweled chalice to her lips. The taste is sweet at first, a nectar that numbs her sorrow. But hidden in the liquid is poison, slowly corroding her body, her will, her spirit. Still, she drinks again and again, because the momentary sweetness blinds her to the long decay. Psychologists describe this cycle as self-betrayal. You promise yourself it will be different tomorrow, that this time you'll stop, that the last drink, the last call, the last scroll will finally be the last, yet the craving whispers otherwise. And when you give in, shame follows like a shadow. wrapping itself around you in silence. Neuroscience reveals that the brain's reward system adapts, needing more and more stimulation just to feel normal. What once soothed now demands servitude, and you become both prisoner and guard, locking yourself into the very cell you fear. This is the haunting side of comfort. It disguises itself as love while hollowing you out from within. The addicted mind is not just a mind in pain, but a mind at war with itself. You long for freedom, yet sabotage it, reaching for healing, yet feeding the wound. You wear the mask of control, but beneath it lives a monster that grows stronger the more you refuse to name it. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow, the part of you cannot bear to face, the hunger that thrives in secrecy, the beast that feeds on silence. And the more you deny it, the more power it claims over your life. But the prison of craving is not only personal, it is also collective. The same forces that chain you in solitude are celebrated and reinforced by the culture around you. To understand how deep the bars of this cage truly go, you must step back and see the society that rewards addiction, turning your private suffering into its greatest profit. Have you ever noticed how often the very behaviors that erode you from within are the ones most celebrated by the world around you? Addiction does not survive in silence alone, it thrives in applause. From the billboards that paint alcohol as freedom, to the ads that whisper happiness is just one purchase away, to the constant chorus of notifications that pull your attention like invisible strings, society has learned to sanctify dependence. And the cruelest part is that you are told this is normal, even admirable. To be endlessly busy, to always consume, to never be still, these are the badges of belonging in an addicted society. Picture the party where laughter echoes and glasses clink. The bottles on the table are not just drinks, they are symbols of connection, proof that you belong. To decline is to risk exile, to be the one who doesn't know how to have fun. What is celebrated as bonding is often quiet self-harm, yet the crowd calls it life. Or look at the office, where working through exhaustion is praised as dedication. Hustle becomes a religion, each sacrifice of sleep and health, a sacred offering to the altar of productivity. The addicted mind is not shamed here, it is rewarded, promoted, and envied. Social media deepens this trap with precision. Engineers design infinite scrolls and glowing red badges to exploit your brain's dopamine loops. Each like, each ping, is another drop of sugar for the starving soul. And because everyone else is hooked too, your own dependence feels invisible. It blends into the background noise of modern life, until silence itself feels unbearable. Neuroscience shows that the brain's reward circuitry is amplified not only by personal cues, but by cultural reinforcement. When the collective cheers for your craving, the craving becomes harder to resist. This is the cathedral of cravings. Its pillars are built from consumerism. Its stained glass windows glow with advertisements. Its hymns are sung in slogans. And every day, without realizing it, you bow. You bow when you accept overwork as virtue, when you equate spending with identity, when you mistake validation for love. The economy thrives on your servitude, turning your hidden wounds into profit margins. Addiction is not the outlier. It is the engine that drives entire industries. And so the mask of normalcy is deceptive. To be normal in a culture like this often means to be quietly addicted to something. Caffeine to wake you, alcohol to calm you, screens to distract you, consumption to define you. You call it lifestyle, habit, even personality. But beneath the glitter of acceptance lies the same prison. Comfort that chains, craving that consumes, dependence that dictates. Yet every prison leaves scars, and when the applause fades and the lights go out, you are left with the emotional cost, the loneliness, the emptiness, the quiet despair of realizing that the life you were taught to admire may be the very life that is hollowing you out. Have you ever noticed how the moments that were supposed to make you feel full often leave you emptier than before? This is the cruel mathematics of addiction. The more you feed the craving, the hungrier it becomes. You chase relief as if it were a cure, but every indulgence ends in silence, in shame, in the quiet knowledge that nothing has changed. What you thought was comfort becomes a hollow echo, and in that echo, loneliness grows louder than ever. Picture a man alone at 3 a.m, blue light washing over his tired face as he scrolls endlessly through a feed that never gives him what he's searching for. Each refresh promises connection, a glimpse of meaning, a spark of validation. But with every passing minute, the void inside him widens. The screen gives him everything except what he actually needs: presence, touch, truth. He tells himself one more scroll, one more image, one more chance, but dawn breaks and he feels more invisible than before. Or imagine a woman lying in bed beside someone she cannot leave, yet no longer feels close to. Her hand is held, her body embraced, but in her heart she knows the connection has become dependence. She stays, not out of love, but out of fear of absence, fear of the silence that would come if she let go. This is the hidden loneliness of addiction. You can be surrounded by people, even loved, and still feel as if no one truly sees you. Because the craving blinds you, chains you to the shadow of intimacy rather than intimacy itself. Neuroscience explains that every surge of dopamine is followed by a crash. What rises must fall, and in that fall, your nervous system drowns in cortisol, the stress hormone, leaving you anxious, restless, heavy with despair. Psychologists describe it as the emptiness after indulgence, when the very act that promised to soothe you becomes the source of deeper suffering. You look into the mirror, but your eyes refuse to meet your own, as if the reflection itself carries judgment. The shame becomes a second prison. Not only are you trapped by the craving, but by the belief that you are unworthy of escaping it. This is the haunting cost. Fractured relationships that once felt unbreakable, a body that carries exhaustion like a second skin, a mind that oscillates between longing and loathing. And yet, within this bleakness lies a hidden truth. The darkness that addiction leaves behind is not only despair, it is also a signal, a flare in the night sky, pointing toward change. Because if you can feel the depth of the emptiness, then somewhere within you still lives the possibility of fullness. Somewhere there is a way out, a path not of feeding the craving, but of learning to walk beside it, without letting it devour you. What if freedom was never about erasing the craving, but about learning to live without bowing to it? For so long, you've been told that healing means cutting out desire altogether, that victory lies in perfection, but the truth is more human, more fragile, and more merciful. The chains that hold you are invisible, woven not of steel, but of repetition, memory, and fear. And the way out is not through violence against yourself, but through learning to see the craving without collapsing into it. Imagine sitting with the urge instead of obeying it. Like watching a storm from behind a window, the thunder growls, the rain lashes against the glass, and every nerve in you screams to run outside. Yet, if you wait, the storm weakens. Neuroscience shows that cravings, no matter how fierce, follow a curve. They rise, peak, and then fade. Mindfulness teaches you to ride this wave without drowning, to notice the hunger without feeding it, to let the shadow pass through without becoming the shadow yourself. Picture someone who always reached for the bottle at night, believing it was the only way to quiet the noise inside. One evening, instead of pouring a drink, they sit in the silence, palms open, heart racing. The minutes drag on like hours, but eventually the intensity softens. And for the first time, they realize the craving is not infinite. It is a wave that breaks. That realization is not victory in itself, but it is the first key that turns inside the lock. Healing also means boundaries, telling yourself and others where the line is drawn. A phone turned off at midnight, a toxic lover left unanswered, a schedule that makes space for breath. These small refusals are not weakness. They are quiet acts of rebellion against the monster within. Psychology calls this replacement. When the old neural pathway begins to fade, a new one must be built. Habits that nourish instead of consume. Exercise, writing, deep conversation, even simple presence with nature become bricks in the foundation of freedom. And then comes the deeper work, confronting the shadow that birthed the craving in the first place. Shadow work asks you to look at the unmet needs buried in childhood, the hunger for safety, for recognition, for unconditional love, and give them light at last. This is not about destroying who you are, but embracing the parts of you that learn to survive in broken ways. Progress will never be linear. You will stumble, you will return to old patterns, you will taste the bitterness of shame again. But healing is not about perfection, it is about persistence. You learn to walk beside the craving as if it were an old companion, no longer master, no longer jailer. And with each step, you discover that the cage was never locked, the door was always waiting for you to push it open. Because once you glimpse freedom, the question becomes not whether you can escape, but how deeply you are willing to embrace the life that lies beyond the bars. Have you ever mistaken your craving for your identity? It whispers so convincingly that you begin to believe you are the hunger, you are the emptiness, you are the shadow. But the truth is simpler and more merciful. The craving is not you. It is only the echo of needs unmet, the ghost of longings that never found their place. What you carry is not weakness, it is a misguided compass, still pointing toward the love, safety, and wholeness you once needed and never received. Carl Jung wrote that what you resist not only persists, but grows. Addiction is proof of that. The more you run from the shadow, the larger it becomes, feeding on silence, swelling in darkness. But when you face it, when you name it, you discover that the monster is not a monster at all, but a wounded child who learned to survive in broken ways. What you thought was proof of your failure becomes evidence of your endurance. Even Nietzsche, in his brutal clarity, spoke of turning suffering into strength of learning to carry pain not as a curse but as fuel. Addiction, in this light, is not the end of you. It is a teacher, however cruel, urging you to return to yourself. Imagine the cravings you have known: the bottle, the screen, the person you could not leave. Each one, for a fleeting second, offered you a taste of wholeness. They were never your enemy. They were only poor substitutes for the truth that wholeness cannot be bought, consumed, or begged from another. It must be grown, like a garden, patiently, painfully, watered by self-awareness, and lit by the willingness to change. A garden without water withers, but a garden tended even after years of neglect can bloom again. The Buddhists taught that desire is both the root of suffering and the seed of awakening. To crave is to ache for life, for connection, for meaning, but to awaken is to see that the craving itself is empty. A trick of the mind, a mirage on the horizon. You do not need to destroy the craving to be free. You only need to recognize that it was never your essence, never your truth. The bars of the prison were never real. They were built from fear, repetition, and silence. The moment you see them, you begin to walk free. Freedom is not a sudden shattering of chains, but a slow awakening to the fact that you were never as bound as you believed. And when you carry this realization into your own life, the craving loses its power. What remains is not the addicted mind, but the human heart, flawed, wounded, resilient, and capable of becoming whole again. The craving is not you, it never was. And the moment you understand this, you take your first true step beyond the cage.